So our very, very last panel of the season. So a tragic day, but also a brilliant day, because we're going to be doing our Paris roundup discussion, and we've got an amazing set of panellists with two amazing special guests. But I will let Brix, I'll let you introduce yourselves and our two fabulous additions.
Well, my name is Brix Smith-Start, and I'm a retailer, a stylist, and a fashion TV presenter. And these are my two pugs. This is Pixie and her daughter Gladys, who are both ex-Mulberry models.
So they can bring something to the table. They can tell us the experience of being on the catwalk.
Oh yeah.
Hi, I'm Tallulah Harlech. I'm an actress and I'm fashion smart by nepotism.
I'm Oriole Cullen and I'm a curator for fashion at the Victorian Art Museum.
Tim Blank, style.com, coming back again after yesterday. Don't get sick of me.
Tim, congratulations. I know we were just talking about this before we went live, but it's absolutely incredible. You must be really, really happy.
Thank you. I'm stunned.
It's amazing though.
It's just out of the blue. I'm completely amazed. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
We're very honoured to have you. Equally as honoured as yesterday, but just a little bit more.
Lou, anytime.
Oh, thanks. So let's talk about Paris. Let's talk about the season. What were the standouts for you? It was a huge season in a way, and there was so much to talk about. So I know it's always going to be a really hard one to summarise. These guys are very passionate about it already, very loud. Tim, what was your personal highlight?
It wasn't a highlight in the sense that it was something I loved. It was a highlight in the sense of something that I was mesmerised by. It was Eddie Slimane show for Saint Laurent, because the level of vitriol that it released, it was like unlike anything. I mean, it was kind of like when Westwood and McLaren were doing. I thought it was appropriate in the year that everyone's going to be talking about punk and David Bowie at the V&A, of course. That it reminded me of the reaction that their clothes provoked in the 70s, because people were just so irrationally disturbed by that collection. And I thought that was kind of amazing to prove. It just showed that, fashion can still pull people's, pull people's strings? Pull people's,
rub people up the wrong way.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, yeah. And I thought about it afterwards, because it really crystallized this whole issue of fashion getting older. That you have these old houses, because at the same time as Eddie was doing this with Saint Laurent, Alexander Wang was making his debut at Balenciaga, and everybody was kind of like, how could he follow in the footsteps of Jesquier, who's one of the most brilliant designers that we've probably ever seen. And I think he did a very creditable job. But the French were raging about the legacy with Balenciaga, and people were raging about the legacy of Saint Laurent, which seemed like such a red herring with me, because I think Eddie's done whatever else he's done a very good job of reconceptualizing the label for a whole lot of people for whom Eve probably doesn't mean very much. So I think he did that very well. I think on that level it was a very, very successful show.
Somebody's at the door. Tim, when you were watching the Saint Laurent show, what did you think as you were watching it? What was coming to your mind? Like, what were the thoughts gurgling up?
Well, the thoughts that were gurgling up in my brain were the online trash and vaudeville catalogue. I think that you could go through and match outfit to outfit. And everybody else was saying Courtney Love, and she was saying Courtney Love, of course, as well. But
very enthusiastic.
I wasn't. She said that Eddie got it right because he didn't use beanies, which apparently she never wore beanies. And the fact that he didn't have a beanie in the collection meant to her it was incredibly authentic. But I was thinking trash and vaudeville, and then I thought, well, that's a very literal and that's a very superficial thing. And then when I was really looking at it, I thought, okay, at a pinch, that's the outfit that Catherine Deneuve was wearing in Belle de Jour, which is the pinnacle of YSL for the classicists. But Deneuve's lover in the film is the gold-toothed gangster Pierre Clémenty, one of the most beautiful men who ever lived. And so Eddie sticks Pierre Clémenty's leather jacket over Catherine Deneuve's little black dress with the white collar. And I thought, yeah, that's super smart. And if you wanted to make a case for him honouring the legacy of Saint Laurent, he did. But on a whole other level, he kind of moved the goalposts really radically. And while I was watching it, I was thinking the whole mise en scène was amazing. The way he staged it was amazing. Music was incredible. Invitation was incredible. every detail in the end added up to kind of happening. And you just don't have them anymore. I mean, the fact that I didn't like the clothes very much was almost immaterial at that point.
Would you think it would be sellable as a retailer? Would you
Retailers went gaga.
Committing suicide?
No, loved it.
Did they?
Loved it.
But the last collection sold incredibly. The first one.
That's what we're hearing. Yeah.
It's interesting because it got me thinking about kind of the role of a critic and how you unpick something like that, because I feel like it's interesting you mentioned that legacy, because I feel like for a lot of sort of our younger viewers, a lot of that got lost in translation, and I think that's maybe why people responded with such anger towards it, because I think I hate being like because people didn't get it, but I think there's a lot of it where, you know, the way he did the YSL legacy was it was in subtle ways, you know, that you would get if you knew the history of YSL very well. And I think very obviously to people it looks incredibly different, because some of the stuff like changing the name and redesigning, getting rid of that iconic logo.
And moving to LA, moving the studio to LA.
Exactly. That's eclipsed a lot of the more subtle, very sort of deferential references to the...
But do you think, I mean, you're saying, what, that it was, that you disliked the fact that it wasn't Saint Laurent?
No, I think it was, I think it was, there were aspects of it that were very, I don't know, I think there were aspects of it that were incredibly sort of deferential to original Saint Laurent, which I think is amazing, but I think they're not obvious. And I think that's why people are angry about it. I think.
But I was assuming that most of the comments that were being made online were from kids.
Yeah, exactly.
I doubt if it's people my age kind of expressing their
At the
unholy
laptops,
rage at what Eddie Slimane thing to Saint Laurent. I thought, well, why would they care what he did to, you know, I mean, why wouldn't they just look at the clothes and think, oh, I like that, I don't like that? But they're all he's you know, shat all over the legend of Yves Saint Laurent. I thought, whoa, that's kind of peculiar.
But people get very passionate and angry about fashion, don't they?
But why would they want Saint Laurent in aspic anyway? Why would they want it preserved in amber like a, you know, mosquito in Jurassic Park or something? Why would that?
But do you think there's a certain taboo? I'd actually be really interested to find out what you think about this, Oriole, because you see people coming into the V&A, and I guess you know, kind of, people have this. There's a taboo about changing a house. You know, people have this like almost programmed respect for houses, and I think Yves Saint Laurent, it stands alongside something like Chanel, that people kind of, there's a nostalgia to it. People just like being able to understand the codes of a house, and that makes more sense to them.
I think they like to see some sort of a thread running through everything, so there's something that they can relate to. And when it goes so far, well, everything that you said is right, and I understand all the subtleties. I don't have the historical references that you do. My mind isn't encyclopedic like yours is about it. But when you talk about it, and Catherine Deneuve and stuff like that, then it makes sense to me on like many more subtle levels. But I think generally most people like to see some sort of thread of constancy going through it, so that they can relate to and be like, oh yes, this is how it's come on, you know.
But I think bringing Eddie Slimane in there, I mean, it's sort of like, it's, you know, when you think of what he did at Dior, it's sort of, he tore that apart and made something incredibly new at the time, and it was really, you know, I think the house is looking for something that was, you know, completely different. He's instantly who you would sort of think that he's going to bring something completely different, and it's not what people expected. And I think that's where it lies. It's sort of, people are thrown in a sense.
The fact is, I actually didn't like the clothes very much. So that's just my opinion. I thought it was funny. I got a message from a designer friend of mine who said his niece came to stay with him last year. His niece from LA, and she's 13, and he said every single outfit she wore was exactly what was on that cover.
Yeah.
And he said, I wish I'd done it.
Yeah.
But this is so interesting, because this made me think a lot about the role of the fashion critic, because I was almost like, how can anyone analysing this collection criticise the clothes, because it is how every girl dresses. Like, I have those outfits. But I wear them around on a Saturday.
It's a lot to do with styling and how the shows.
It's true though. You know, every girl that you see on the tube is wearing that. Like,
okay, I'm 24, about to be 25, so I feel like this is essentially meant to be somewhere within my realm or market, and I can tell you, I want to be wearing Celine, J.W. Anderson, Vuitton, Chanel. I don't want to be...
Yeah, but it's not aspirational, that's the point.
But then we talked about this lightly yesterday afterwards, not live, when I ended up having a massive talk with George Cortina, the stylist, and my mum about this, and George brought in the historical elements of, you don't understand, Marianne Faithfull was cutting up her couture and doing things like that. Well, okay, that doesn't look like cut up couture, because it doesn't look like couture. So I didn't get that. But there were all these elements that I think Tim was talking about and I didn't initially get. And then when George and Mum were discussing it and telling me about this, Mum looked at me like, we got that so wrong, Tallulah. We're so stupid. We're so stupid. We didn't get it.
You shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to be talked into clothes. I mean, really.
That's true.
Like I said, the fact that there's that level of the whole thing, and he's a brilliant manipulator, and the levels of it all. You know, in the end, the fact that his invitation was this young artist called Theodora Allen, who of course I instantly went and Googled and looked at her stuff.
And she's amazing.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, amazing.
And I say, thank you, Eddie. That's something I learned in this show. But, you know, all those levels that make it palatable in some ways don't make it, you know, don't make that any better for me.
No,
so
but it's like if it looks like a spade, call it a spade. It looks like it's from Zara.
Apparently when you're up, you know, I was told it's the best, it's the most sublime quality, the nicest cashmere, and I was like, but why does it look cheap?
Trash and
and I'm told, but that's the comment, that's the fuck you, that's the element of, then I felt like, well, it's not an art installation. This is not, you can't make a comment about society like this. Like, it's clothes that have to sell. So I'm hugely confused by it.
There's a part of me that really loves that it really put the cat among the pigeons in such a big way.
Sure.
And that someone just absolutely went completely sort of off the rails and did something so irreverent that it made people freak out. And I love that. Like, there's an old rock and roll part of me that understands that aesthetic so much, and I do love that. But
what did you wear when you were playing guitar for the fall?
Body Map.
Oh.
Yeah. And some old pieces of couture from my mom's closet.
Cut up?
You right?
Altered.
Like Lindsay Lohan slashing that ball gown to a mid-thigh.
No, I didn't quite slash. I did a few things to Thierry Mugler, didn't slash. I was scared to slash. I have like too much respect for the clothes to really slash, but did tweaked, yeah.
But I think also a lot of people sort of reference the Saint Laurent beatnik look, you know, as that, you know, everyone was so shocked when he was at Christian Dior and did that. You know, so there is that kind of nice little parallel.
Or the early 70s collection that everybody said was a collaborateur, you know, the Nazi that chubby fur was right out of that show. I mean, that was a direct quote. But you know, does that mean anything to the girl who sees that fur and says, I want to buy that coat, I love it? No, it doesn't matter to her that it was.
I think that's what I was kind of trying to get at when I was talking to you before, you know, because when you, like, it's fascinating to hear someone explain this collection, because it can be explained, and I know you said clothes shouldn't be explained, but you don't, when you say, you know, that dress was inspired by this, blah, blah, blah.
And it can be explained, I mean, about if you're not, it's not talking you into liking it, to know what it is. But
then I'm like, who's going to buy this? Because that's what I'm confused by with it, which I know is a very simplistic thing to, but the girls who this looks like can't afford to buy Saint Laurent. You know.
But I think it's very much in the styling of the catwalk too. I think when you see the pieces in the store, they look quite different.
But we had someone in from Selfridges when we did the original Saint Laurent panel. We were talking about, we were like, how would you display this? You know, like little floral tea dresses, like some plaid shirts, and then like the great coats at the side. Like, how would you even do that in the store? Which is quite. It's just.
Well, you know, there's so much there that I was talking to Justin O'Shea from My Teresa, and talking to him about the way he was going to buy it. You suddenly see it as something completely different from what was on the catwalk. He's going to buy all the black leather, for example.
Okay.
So it's going to look. It's going to be a black leather jacket and a black zip mini, you know, a zippy leather mini skirt with those boots, and suddenly it's going to look like, well, Marianne Faithfull and Girl on a Motorcycle.
Yeah, that's exactly. So you can kind of make it into what you want, because there's so many pieces there.
If you want
so
a big
much
cardigan, there it is.
And you're totally right about the styling. It's the styling that really, you know, is like putting the bleach into the milk, kind of. Do you know what I mean? Making the sickening concoction. But when you do break, you know, if you can get past that and look at all the different pieces, as a retailer, there are things to sell and stuff. It's just, and they might be great separated, but I haven't yet separated my eyes from my brain to completely take it.
But you know, look, now it's all over, and the dust, I suppose the dust has settled. I think, God, I'm glad it was there, because
I was going to ask
it became this thing around everything else. you know, it was funny going to Givenchy the next day, was it? And seeing a show with Anthony Hegarty singing, and it was, you know, it was, the whole thing was so beautiful and solemn that you sort of felt churlish for finding any fault with the whole thing, to walk out and say, I didn't quite like that, but because Anthony was singing away and singing me a favourite Anthony and the Johnsons song. But having had that thing the day before, which was so kind of brutal in a way, to see something that was supremely elegant, and it just suddenly felt, it feels a tiny bit yesteryear-ish, you know? Although it was absolutely gorgeous. And,
but
you know.
this Givenchy collection, it's really got, you know, everyone thought it was perfect, and everyone seemed to be completely bowled over by it. What was it that made it so special? Were you guys impressed by it? You're shaking your head.
I'm like, I really, really liked it, but it wasn't the one that, you know, slayed me completely.
Do you think? I think this is.
I mean, Tim was there.
Yeah.
You saw it in real life.
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible performance. It was incredible. It was one of those shows. You know, this my running theme this season. You had to be there. You know, like with Prada, you had to be there. It was one of those situations. The way the models, the pace of the show, him singing away, and also the choice of songs. You Are My Sister, and you know, Ricardo has 8 older sisters, and I've always thought his shows were about quite hard sex in a way, quite kind of, and this was about love, which was a shift, and I think that's what people were responding to. There was a softness and a romance that I think really seduced people.
I think the whole, like, this whole theater of it as well, like every single you know, essence and element of the whole experience really added to it. I mean, I look at it now, like in the cold hard light of day as a quiet, empty, a quiet page on a monitor, and it looks great, you know, but I think Tim's right, you had to be there. That's why I don't feel like I can comment, because I wasn't there, and it becomes, when you're doing a show, it becomes like a whole work of art, like getting the music right and the pacing right and the timing and the scent in the venue and blah 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 blah. It can, you know, take you somewhere really special when it all works. I mean, there were certain other shows, like Stella McCartney, for instance. I really loved that. I thought it was great, and I thought it was so wearable, and it's stuff I would really want to wear. And there's lots of times I haven't wanted to wear her clothes, but I just really loved everything about it, and I thought she had moved forward in I thought she was just right on the money for like so many reasons, but that translated to the cold video page, you know, around there.
What it did translate, the show translated.
To me, to the pictures translated.
There's an interesting thing with that we talked about a little bit when we were talking about the Chanel show, actually, and we talked about, you know, the way in which what a show is, and we talked about whether some of the people we've had talking have said, you know, a show is an extension of a PR sort of exercise. You know, it's showing off the might of your brand. It's there to it's like a press release, a huge press release. But then for me, that's what's strange about something like Chanel, because they do such an incredible sort of moment of theatre.
Yeah.
But then it's kept quite exclusive because it's not streamed or anything like that. And it got me thinking, you know, about what the show still is and what the purpose of the show is. Because some designers seem to fully embrace, you know, like designers talk about seeing things with their digital eye, and they embrace that the show will be Instagrammed and tweeted and streamed, and that will translate to a sort of a...
I wonder, because I mean, Chanel, they have a grandstand of spectators there, so that's, I mean, it's one of the most inclusive shows in that sense of physical presence of audience, but also the scale of it. I think to live stream that, you know, is quite something. It's quite a projection because it's so gigantic. I just wonder, I mean, I know that they're not sort of constrained by budgets or anything, but you know.
I feel like Mugatu from Zoolander. The globe. Oh my god.
And Carl should have popped out at the end and stood on top of it, because you know, obviously people were thinking Charlie Chaplin and the Great Dictator when he dances the world around like a, and there was a bit of that, but the sort of tongue-in-cheek world domination.
Yeah, it was funny.
I think he should have popped out the top at the end and stood there. That would have been too perfect. I know it's very, very, very strange, the scale of these shows and the fact that they aren't captured in any way. This was obviously gigantic, but I'm also thinking about the couture show, which was so exquisitely beautiful.
Completely.
All the pictures that people saw with the models actually walking out from backstage, that there was a path through the forest where they were photographed. There wasn't the sense of being in that wooden arena and that strange, like a pagan ritual. And Saskia started spinning like a crazy lady, and it was just wow. And there's no record of it.
That's strange to me because it goes back to what we were talking about after the stream. We always talk about the best things when we're off camera. But yesterday when you said, you've written reviews and then you've looked at the pictures and been like, how amazing it was doesn't come across. And that to me, I know I'm kind of working digital, so I always think like that. But to me that is so strange that as a designer who has put such spirit and soul into something like we saw at Givenchy, that you wouldn't want all of that to come across
But
to
how?
everyone.
How do you communicate that? I mean, an IMAX screen or something. and then how many cameras would you need, and how much editing? And it's always been that way with fashion. I mean, any John Galliano or Alexander McQueen show, which was crammed with the most extraordinary, and Jean-Paul Gaultier, and even Vivienne Westwood, Martine Sitbon, for God's sake, at the beginning of the 90s. They were huge shows, and it would have been impossible. And their transience was part of their charm, the fact that, beauty must die. And you just look back and think all of it is gone. Just like a pageant in, medieval Europe. Gone, like all the Louis XIV's pageants or whatever, just exist for that little moment. And I think Karl Lagerfeld he probably thinks, he really likes the fact that it's here for that, it exists for that, and then it's gone because he never looks back. And when the show's over, he's working on the next thing. He doesn't think for a second about what he just did. What is that attitude? Is that a sort of classical, I don't know, what is that attitude?
It's certainly about living in the now.
It's very fashion.
It's certainly about being in the moment and sucking in absolute life, every blood cell of that moment. And it's so, sometimes you're in the moment, you're somewhere, and you just want to absorb everything, and your brain is all ready to explode because you can't take in anymore, and you just want to remember every single second of it, like my 50th birthday. So you know what I mean? You have these moments of your life where you just, and fashion shows are quite like that, especially when they work on every single level, and the theater is beyond, and it takes you to another planet, really.
Well, I think, when you see Life of Pi in 3D, you can go back and see it again the next day when it overwhelms you with its splendor. You can't do that with fashion.
But this gets onto a really interesting point about fashion, which is created to be sort of seen and to be exhibited, because we've talked a bit about this before when we did our couture panels, and that struck me as something quite interesting for this season, because I think it's when we were looking at the McQueen collection, those kind of incredible sort of really edited 10 looks, and obviously that was scaled back because of Sarah Burton's sort of personal pregnancy things, but that that real opulence, this idea of fashion being seen and then re-seen and being about being not about being worn but about being produced for a wider people to see, and it got me thinking about fashion and the exhibition and fashion, and then we talked about this with Rodarte as well, and
I think we've spoken about that before. There's a real appetite for exhibited pieces, and these are magnificent. I mean, they are something that it's sort of hard to comprehend, even looking at one, up close, seeing the actual garment and the work on it. It is quite amazing. And
as a curator, how do you respond to those pieces?
Well, it's interesting because they're, for an exhibit, they're perfect exhibition pieces. I mean, you could just put that collection in a gallery and it would be amazing. But, that's a quite separate thing to fashion and the fashion system in a way. If you're sort of talking about it as a purely display.
Well, people are used to describing clothes like that as red carpet outfits, for example.
Oh my God, that's a costume to me.
But it would be an insult.
An exhibition.
I mean, they need to be looked at, and they need to be looked at up close, and
exactly.
Appreciated, because it's all that handwork.
But it's like a costume and a work of art. Like it's just so beyond.
It got me thinking about whether designers, whether that's, we talk about them designing for the red carpet, and that's a very natural thing, but I was like, are they starting to design for the exhibition, Because we saw people led by the exhibition this season, led by punk, led by Bowie.
Yeah, but I think you've always had a touch of that. I mean, when the Met did the Goddess exhibition the following season, so many designers did Goddess dresses. So I think there's always, and even if you go back, there's always been that exchange, even with art exhibitions and things in the past have influenced fashion. So there is that exchange. But I don't think this is particularly designing for the exhibition. I think there's something else at work here, in a sense. It's sort of pushing this, it is that sort of thread that you were talking about earlier through McQueen's work, this kind of expression of, it's so much, there's so much, it's almost, it's like too much, it's kind of, but I don't think that's at all what's motivating Sarah Burton. What I find in my job is some designers love museums. They understand what they're about. They're very happy to cooperate or work with you in an exhibition, and they visit shows. Some don't at all. It's not part of the way they work, and that's fine. And they don't engage at all, and it's not relevant in a sense. So, and I think it's funny, this has really come through in this season in Paris. There's so many different approaches and different markets, and it's really become explicit, I think, just looking at these shows. But I don't think there's too many designers that would, I don't think really there's anyone that would have that particularly in mind when they're doing a collection.
That would be so much ego. That would be a scary amount of ego, and I would worry for that person if they go, I'm going to start. But in a way, probably Karl Lagerfeld could be that person.
But never. But when would...
I'm going to make...
You've got some noisy doggies on your lap there.
Oh, are they so loud?
You're saying such wonderful things.
Oh!
You're a snoring dog.
Okay.
They might want to run around for a
Do you
Maybe
want to
that's
run
a
around,
comment on
girls?
what's
Have a go. Ooh, okay.
Maybe they're our harshest critic.
Sorry,
They were
Tim,
enjoying
what
it.
were
No,
you
it
saying?
just seems like it seems like a perverse to design stuff on the hope that it'll be included in an exhibition at some point, because let's say the exhibition is in 300 years, it's not going to be much use to you.
Well, in a way it's perverse, in a way it's like so egotastic, but in another way it's so, sure of yourself.
I don't know if I see it like that. I kind of see
two
it as
ways.
like, but if you're designing something that cannot be bought by a huge amount of people, why is it less egotistical to expect someone to be able to buy it, to expect people to be able to kind of see and engage with it? I don't know. I don't know what I think about it now. I'm kind of confusing myself.
I thought this McQueen, given the fact that Sarah was having twins, and as Alex Fury pointed out, this was 5 sets of twins. The collection was 5 sets of twins. It seemed to me to be an incredibly personal thing,
Completely.
but it also seemed to me to be a very radical thing. I actually felt, I was probably completely on my own on this, but I actually felt it was a very, very punk collection. I felt it was an assault on reason in a way. A really kind of just so extraordinary, so beyond anything that we used to see as fashion, that it had that sort of slightly rebel edge to it.
Yeah, it was sort of a challenge, I think, in a way. It's,
Saint Laurent, but the very opposite end.
Yeah.
Exactly,
I wonder who will wear it to the Met Ball.
Yeah.
One of those black
I think
pieces.
Daphne would look pretty spectacular. in
Yeah,
one of those.
probably.
She would look
You?
incredible.
Who knows? Daphne would definitely rock
Yeah,
one
she'd
of
look
these looks.
incredible.
Someone will, and you're right, thinking of it in that punk way and thinking of the Met Ball being punk, it's going to make an outing.
And also punk and McQueen as a label, as a brand, is there's something. And let's talk a little bit about some of the less sort of in-your-face collections that we saw. I'd like to talk about Balenciaga, because obviously that was a real moment as well, and a very different kind of moment to what we saw at Saint Laurent, because this was a completely different way of going into a house and sort of taking over there. What were our reactions to Balenciaga? Did you like it, Brix?
Yeah, I really did. I really did. I really did. I'm more interested in hearing what everyone else has to say, because Tim is studied every single collection, and I want to hear how you think.
Well, I thought that given that what I said, that Wang was faced by following him, filling those impossible boot. He did something very smart. He just bypassed that whole period and went back to the original spirit of the house. And I was really impressed by how he filtered that into a collection for now.
It's great because it is obviously, you can see Balenciaga, but you can also see Wang.
Yeah.
Which
for
is
sure.
a very good balance. I think that he's the sort of monochrome palette, but yet, the silhouettes and.
This gets me interested in how you work as a designer going into a house and heading and taking over in a sense. And I know that it hugely depends on what the house's history is like and the house's DNA, but is there a right way to do that?
Well, we have another golden example this season with Raf Simons, who isn't only inheriting Dior, well, like Wang, not just Balenciaga, but Jeskia. You've got Simons following Galliano.
And it's interesting what you say about Wang, kind of ignoring that period and going back, because a lot of people have made that comment about Raf.
But what I would always, one of the things I love about him is that the way he can personalize something, it's really odd the way he used the Warhol imagery in this collection. It's odd. It's not obvious, not a logical thing to do. He uses it in a very sort of, there it is. It's not like sublimated into the, he just sticks a Warhol graphic on a
slightly asymmetrically, which was very him in a sense. It's sort of slightly coming.
Jill Sander when he used Vegeta, and it was like, wow, that's so just peculiar, and it's almost like I don't think of him as being a fashion person. I think his approach to things is not the way a fashion person. He's just so fascinated by as an outsider, really, and you can feel that fascination. I thought it was a really, really beautiful collection, and I love the way he has inserted himself into the stories so subtly, but so kind of forcefully.
Yeah, he's done it forcefully, but with a huge amount of modesty and humility. I think it's really,
which is him.
Yeah, completely, actually.
Yeah.
But I think in a way it's a shame that we saw so much sort of HR shuffling at the same time, because it meant that kind of overshadowed the actual collections. Last season when there was just that kind of mental focus on Eddie versus Raf, and it's a shame in a way, you think, because it's incredibly difficult to go in somewhere and produce something. And I think that's what was nice with Balenciaga, is because it kind of, everyone breathed a sigh of relief when it was just good, and everyone was like, great, thanks, and everyone wants it to be.
This impressed me because I was funny that some people said the exact opposite, but it did feel to me like he had made Dior for a younger client.
But some people criticise this for not being, there not being enough like propositions for a woman's rounded wardrobe.
Susie did.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I sat there thinking, God, if I was, looking to buy Dior, I would have, and I was young and into, fashion, there'd be all sorts of things there that would strike me as very fresh. And
Well, I thought it was extremely beautiful, extremely wearable. It had the thread that we were talking about of the house running through it. I love the shapes. I just thought he did everything. I loved it, and I loved that there was a freshness about it at the same time.
Tallulah, would you rather wear this than Saint Laurent then?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't panic, Eddie. We'll talk in LA.
What was your favorite, Tallulah? What do you most covet and want?
Oh, of all the collections?
Yeah.
It's way too hard. I mean, I was looking back at them and...
You can give me 5.
Well, I don't think I can even do... Because I can always pick things out of everyone that I like. But essentially, when things get strict, when they get like an intelligent dressing, clever women, strong women, forceful, I get very into it. It's not discounting Valentino, however. There's always beauty and elegance, and I think there's always a time for just a pretty dress, which is what I think a lot of Valentino dresses are, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just not, there was this sort of strict monastic vibe to it. I tend to lean more towards, I think because I'm small and I'm young, I like to be taken seriously, and with a harsher, what could look clunkier or more awkward way of dressing, and I was saying yesterday, something that makes you have to engage your brain and think and go, what's happening here? Not in a weird tutti frutti way, but just in a new shape or a new line, like Celine or something. I edge more towards
as
that.
an actress, do you think that every day you decide what to wear in order to get a job done of whatever you're doing?
Possibly, I know. Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? A different way of power dressing, but with an actress intent. So it's almost like putting on a costume and being that what you need to get done today.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
there's definitely.
So it's hard for you to answer that question because there's so many different facets of what you do.
There are, and that must be, which is why I take in and why I enjoy so many different elements. It's funny. I mean, looking at Valentino, it's that type of dress is harder for me in the day to day because I can't really throw on one of those beauties every day. But it's not going to serve me in my running to Equinox gym, going and having a meeting at Twickenham Film Studios. I can't quite do that in one of these dresses. They're slightly red carpet only, which isn't, or cocktail party or lovely dinner. I mean, they're gorgeous.
I thought it was amazing that the most beautiful dress in the couture show, the red lace, the shades of red lace that nobody had ever done before. Those all on the same dress, so many shades of red lace or whatever. And Adele had it cut into a short dress for the Oscars, which I thought was, there's couture for you.
Sacrilegious. No, Tim, tell me what you think.
This is great. I'm just going to leave Brix.
Sorry.
No, I like it. It's really good. I can drink my champagne. I really want to know what you think about, like, there's been such a change in Valentino in the last couple of seasons where before, like, I would hardly even give it a glance, and now it's like one of my favorite things. Yeah. What the hell happened? What's the, like, intrigue behind the whole house?
Well,
there's two.
Maria Grazia and Pier Paolo worked with Valentino for years and years and years, and so obviously they feel it. I mean, how beautiful is that dress on the right? So they're pretty clued into what made the house tick. But then, what I love about them is they're Roman Goths, basically.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, they go to Depeche Mode. They go to Depeche Mode concerts with their families, and I really think that there's an element of this kind of like goth shoegazy sort of thing.
Even like the rock stud stuff they did, that's like, it's edgy and it's cool, But
it just got so much better, and now it's like so fast.
Well, it just resonates in a way that not the Valentino. I mean, I think Valentino was an amazing designer, but this stuff just kind of resonates in a slightly different way. And it feels. I just feel. You just imagine listening to. I'm loving The Soft Room from San Francisco. I just imagine listening to that album and looking at these clothes,
It's a different. I was interested, Tallulah, when you were talking about kind of like this idea of power dressing and strong women, because I think it's a development of that in a sense, and I think women got tired of this idea that to be a strong woman you had to wear some kind of like heinous power suit, and this is like, it's a different version of it. Like it's very simplistic to think you have to have a strong shoulder to be dressed in an empowering way, and I think that's what's really interesting with. This goes to what you were saying, Tim, about kind of how they're just, they're cool and they're cultured, these two designers. It doesn't feel like this is kind of like reductive, silly fashion for pretty girls. It feels like this is fashion for strong women.
Yeah, and you can use femininity as your form of power too, without just looking at it from a different way, or, there's all sorts of different areas and angles you can play up.
Yeah, I think I think the fact that you're into what the difference between fashion and clothes is, and I think there's something about fashion which is, like you were saying, Tallulah, it's very much about character. And when you buy something which is fashion, there's something there for you there's a role there for you to assume in a way. Yeah. And I think that's why it was interesting, the sort of take on the strong woman this season. In Milan and Paris, which this sort of film noir take, that a slight femme fatale thing going on, like the 40s silhouette, which was in Stella and Celine, and a lot of other collections as well, that which reads as a strong, that's a strong woman. That's the kind of woman who breaks balls, because there's Joan Crawford and all those Barbara Stanwyck and all those women used to destroy men at the kind of flick of. I like that this season. That there was a sense of women who were just ready to absolutely crush men like bugs.
But then we also saw that in a really softer context with Givenchy, and I thought that's why that was interesting, that he picked up on that mood, but in a very different way, you know, with that kind of future feminism thing that we saw with Anthony. And I thought this season, it's exactly what you just said, you know, the way it considered gender and women, I thought was really interesting. Yeah, really amazing.
Very cinematic. I mean,
Yeah,
Hermes as
completely.
well, because I think Hermes really took people by surprise, coming at the very end of the week. And I don't know why people were surprised, because it's like the Iron Butterfly, that house, in a way, that it sort of has an unassuming vibe. But I always leave Hermes shows, or will often leave Hermes shows, thinking, wow. And this to me was just what I was saying, it's sort of quintessential. The Hitchcock heroine, the David Lynch heroine, they've been big figures in fashion throughout the whole season. And this really got that quality, but with a French gloss, with a sophistication. You could imagine if all the knockoff businesses were going to copy clothes, this would be a good collection to copy, I think. And Celine as well, I guess. But it was so. You felt like you were looking at characters, you know, Miuccia Prada said about her clothes that this is about women and their lives. Who cares about a dress? And that's what I felt the Hermes show did as well. I think it was just so subtle that you just, you know, you couldn't look away.
But it's been interesting with Christophe Lemaire. I think he's come in. It's quite a soft. He's sort of gradually kind of revealing his style, and I think this was. You know, you could really see his hand behind this. I think.
It's interesting, given that what Brix was saying about Valentino, that, you know, when you get someone that just makes a splash so quickly, and then, you know, when you see that in a different way when it's done in this much more sort of pragmatic, slow way, and why sometimes, like, it's a strange example to go to, but, you know, we did a panel on Kenzo, and everyone just talked about, you know, how that's just kind of exploded, and then you see that, and it's interesting when something just kind of grabs everyone's attention, like Valentino did, and that's something. Yeah, I'm interested in why that happens, and whether it's better to take things in a slower, sort of more pragmatic way.
Or you can seduce, or you can bang people on the head, and I think that Umberto and Carol are just brilliant at kind of boom.
Yeah.
You know, how can you resist that?
Do you think we'll get tired of it quicker? I don't know.
Well, they kind of changed it this season.
Yeah, they did a lot.
It was a bit more elaborate, a bit more sort of, you know, fashiony, and I love the way they put everything together, the way they stage things, and I mean, they're impossible to resist. Opening ceremony is just impossible to resist as a phenomenon.
I have to say, in our shop, we got our Kenzo delivery in 2 days ago, and now it's gone. There's about 3 pieces left. There's absolutely no sweaters left. I spoke to Tom from Matches, and he said his went in the afternoon. And as a retailer, I've hardly ever seen that happen. There's been Isabel Marant moments with the Isabel Marant trainers and things like that. There's been a couple moments of things, a bit of an acne moment with certain things. But this.
So what do you think that is?
Don't know. They got everything. They played the game.
Easy price point as well.
No, not necessarily. Some of it's quite expensive, actually. I mean, not hideous, but no, it's not. It's covetable. You have to save up for it. It's not like, you know.
It's not nothing. Yeah.
It's not nothing, but
I just love the fact they got everybody wearing sweatshirts.
That's
Kenzo,
that's what I'm
where
saying.
you would imagine people would rather die than have.
That's what I'm saying, but they got like the coolest, most like. Oh, Pixie, go check who it is. They put it on people that you wouldn't expect, that you would see like at fashion shows and stuff, and they seated just the right people with just like the right jobs, and it wasn't like, you know, the most famous supermodels. It was like really like the movers and shakers from within the industry, and the great journalists and this, that, and it just, I don't know, and the whole thing. I mean, I went a couple seasons ago to have a look at the collection in Paris, and I looked at the shoes. And the shoes, I was going, oh my God, these are like Nigerian shoes. These are like Nigerians' shoes that they wear on Sundays when they're walking around Shoreditch. They're kind of like slippers with no, do you know what I'm talking about? And I said, tell me about the shoes. And they go, oh, they're Nigerian Sunday best. And that was the inspiration. They just take inspiration from everywhere, and I don't know what it is about it, but I think, again, the original thread of Kenzo goes through it in terms of the prints and everything, and there's a lot, you know, in terms of the kind of the Japanese origami bits, and I think the original thread, and that was lost for a long time. Kenzo was dead. It was horrendous.
It wasn't.
I think it was, as a retailer.
I beg to differ. It might have been dead for retail, but I thought Antonio Maris did a wonderful job at Kenzo.
Okay, well,
and another unsung hero. Okay,
that may be true, and I was looking at it from my point of view, but of course all points of views are relevant and good, and I love hearing yours. No, I do. I'm serious. No, I'm serious, because it always makes me think, oh yeah, stop being so one-sided. But for me, we could never have bought it, and we wouldn't have bought it until it changed.
When you think that 40th anniversary collection he did was incredible, with the sort of wrapped headdresses and the prints and everything, but from a retail point of view, obviously it's not.
Well, it wasn't my customer.
Is that what makes someone an unsung hero when it doesn't translate to retail?
Well, no. I'm saying Antonio Maris is a unique case because he's just an incredible designer in Milan that people hardly ever. He's never in the picture, and he just does year after year, show after show, amazing, beautiful things. But what I do think they've done very well. There was an exhibition in Paris a few years ago about fashion in the 80s, 90s, 70s, or whatever, and there were these videos of Kenzo's fashion shows in the old days with Pat Cleveland and Jerry Hall and people running around, laughing, and jumping, you know, having an incredible time. And you watched that and you thought, God, where did the joie de vivre go? And I said that so rude. I just had a stroke when I said that.
Have some more wine, darling.
That's what it's lemonade. And that's what they brought back. It's lemonade, notice. It's got no bubbles in it.
Oh, you match us though.
And that's what they brought back, that kind of joy. If only the models, their joy was contagious, because still models are terrified to
smile. I know. I just wish they would. I love it.
They did at Stella.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Some of them, we could just see the
grimace.
But my friends who did Saint Laurent, that was, I know I'm not allowed to name names, and they have disclosures, they're not really allowed to talk about it, but I know that they were loved doing that, because it was taking on a character, and they were obsessed with doing that and giving it some. So that was, I don't know how many of them want to smile.
Who else was fabulous this season that we've missed?
Scan.
I like Lanvin.
Yeah, we
it was fun, and I thought it's really sort of a lightness to it, and it just felt sort of after the 10th anniversary, he'd just come back with something still very much him, but it was just fun, and I think
he's an interesting one that's so open to the web in some ways, with his little viral videos, but also so turned off by things like streaming and that kind of thing. I don't know, it's an interesting one that I think with Lanvin, because I also feel it's one where a lot gets lost in translation. But this was, what did you think of this, Tim? Give us your
I like Lanvin more and more every time.
Yeah.
It's a funny situation. I guess it's I find it more and more, for me, I find it more and more winning every time. And the messages, sort of,
great.
which were a little bit dystopian, I thought. Help. I thought that was kind of, what I think is really intriguing about Albert Elbaz is he seems like fashion's favorite cuddly Dudley, when he's all schmutzy with everybody, and yet he has a real streak of melancholy and I think darkness, and I really love the way it comes out in his clothes. That his clothes apparently make people, they do make people incredible. His shows make people very, very happy, but there's always a slight sort of tough, dark thing, which I think is
I think that's quite
fascinating.
Because his character is quite he's not a comedian, but he has that kind of vibe, of someone where he's constantly in a performance, and I think that's what's interesting when you see that darkness come through, because it does all feel so happy, and then it's like tears of a clown in a sense. That sounds really offensive, but that kind of vibe to it. I thought this was incredible. You have to tell us your Beatle thing again, because it was so interesting. I put it on the blog, but it was Oriole was
it was just a note that he'd printed one of the suits with Beatles, and we were just saying it's the same Beatles that you with beetle wing embroidery, traditional Indian beetle wing embroidery in the early 20th, late 19th century. They actually used to pull these hard wings off the beetles.
You mean like scarab beetles, where the Cullen?
No, they're sort of like scarab beetles, but they're slightly different. They look like acrylic nails, basically.
Oh, yeah.
They're sort of that iridescent. I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah,
them,
I've seen necklaces made
yes,
of
at
them.
the moment, there's some fabulous jewellery that.
But isn't it weird? He used beetles, and then he used the word help, and the Beatles.
Oh God, it's a reference we all know.
Wow.
And
rock and roll reference.
Yeah.
but to do it in such a sort of cartoony way, yes, I think he's, because he knows all of that, and I think a lot. He does a lot of. I think he does a lot of these things because it teases, tantalizes him to. I guess all designers do that. I mean, they put in little things for themselves and just wonder if anybody will get it.
But I feel like that kind of goes back to what you were saying about, the Chanel show and the Karl Lagerfeld. It was almost, it was a funny little joke about world domination. I think you'd have to, otherwise you'd go insane.
But then to put the audience so far away from the clothes. I mean, they were, like I said yesterday, they were miles away, the models. And it was so deliberate, I thought, that statement about distance. And then they'd have the globe spinning and you see the little Chanel flags and you see how much of the world is untouched, not just by Chanel, but by fashion. And you just think of these enormous kind of stretches of continent where all of this means absolutely nothing. And that's why I thought, I think it's kind of interesting to have the audience sitting so far away, it just sort of seemed to me like a conceptual point, but that might just have been me being...
No, I think you're
just exhausted at taking it conceptually. No, it's interesting actually, you think about when fashion makes a point, it has to in a way, doesn't it? You think otherwise it's just clothes. It goes back to the clothes fashion thing. And Karl Lagerfeld, it always feels like he has something to say.
I find it really reassuring that he did that, because for me it seems like he's it's quite a good balance for him, showing that he's not immersed in it all the time and that it's stepped back and it really is unimportant.
But he's not.
But I don't know. I don't know him. I've never met him. But the image I get from him is like this all-controlling master of everything,
What was that accent?
I don't know. It wasn't Austrian. I don't know. I mean, I only know him from watching him on TV and reading books about him. I didn't know him in person. You do?
I mean, those funny little fur wigs, hats that was supposed to be Anna Wintour's hairdo. Kind of funny. Just little twisty little things like that. Those crusty floral things that, and of course, when you get close, nothing is what it seems to be.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, and none of that. If it looks like a woven, it's not. If it looks like a tweed, it's not. It's embroidery or something. And, absolutely extraordinary state-of-the-art fabrics. But looking at Comme des Garçons, when I just saw the floral go past there in Chanel, that crusty floral, the Comme des Garçons collection with the where everything was a pattern, it wasn't. I mean, it kind of defies comprehension that it was. It looked like decoration, but it wasn't. There was actually a pattern there was a pattern for all of that stuff. I think that this season, maybe more than ever, that the sense of the individual came through very, very strongly. But not strongly, subtly. Maybe that is one thing that is always distinctive in Paris. That, like you said, there's if there's 40 designers, there are 40 statements. You can't. I suppose you can talk about trends and that there was a lot of black and there was a lot of that 40s silhouette, but generally it's just like these people who are just taking fashion places that are just, it's funny that everybody who denies fashion is an art, because it's just the most extraordinary things that are being done in the name of fashion. And I think it was one of those seasons.
I think you see Mom's little glaring face.
Yeah,
peeking out.
Definitely. There she is.
So taken
she is,
by it.
On the left.
Yeah.
There she is.
She loved it so much and kept on saying, "My God, there's so much that I want to do with it, and I want to style it, and I want to work with it." It was amazing.
Yeah, and Junya as well.
Yeah,
which was a more accessible.
Yeah, much more.
Collage, you know.
I think we should also, I'd like to talk about Gareth this season because I thought it was incredible.
Fabulous.
Loved him.
Yeah.
Just to see the power of the superstar in the front row.
Oh yes, Cher.
Cher walked in and super cool fashion people who, you know, who wouldn't
Well,
even raise an
they're so
eyebrow in an
bold.
earthquake. Were just like, up went the mobile, and you see the people who were still trying to be cool and had held the
That's
phone
amazing.
like this, trying to get Cher. And she was just so lovely. She didn't have a clue who Gareth Pugh was. She'd never heard of him.
How did that happen then? Why was Cher
She was
there?
with Laurie Rodkin, her friend who makes her jewellery. And I guess they were on a girls' toot in Paris, so they went to Givenchy. And going in, she didn't know what she was going to see, and going out, she was completely gobsmacked. She was overwhelmed. She said she'd never seen anything like it in her life. She was thrilled. I suppose it was pretty Cher-like in a way, wasn't
Can
it?
I just put something out there?
What?
Cher was my babysitter. And Barbie cleaned up my vomit. Those are my two claims to fame. The actual real Barbie.
The woman who modelled for Barbie.
The woman who is Barbara Handler, the daughter of the Handlers that own Mattel, who is Barbie.
Are they related to Chelsea Handler?
No.
Oh.
Oh
Really?
my
I don't know how we
God.
can move forward.
Cher was, how old was Cher? She was like 17 or 18.
No, it wasn't exactly like that. But she was doing the Sonny and Cher show, and my mom used to throw me in the studio audience at CBS every day after school because my mom worked at CBS, and basically I grew up sitting in the audience with nobody else, just watching Cher and got to know them and everything because there was this kid, so Cher was my babysitter.
Wow.
I think we can't go on from that.
Oh
That's
God,
just a
of course we
revelation.
can't.
Of course
Let's
we
talk
can.
about
We have to
Gareth
talk
Pugh.
about,
Let's move on.
garbage bags. We have to talk about.
Okay,
There were
let's-
no garbage bags left in
It's
East London.
incredible.
Yeah.
And it was
It's
was
just
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, treasure to trash, like Joanne Furness said in her review.
Mm.
It was just so. It was amazing. God knows what happens when you stand near an exposed flame in that outfit. But
Oh my God.
I
yeah.
guess
But
you don't-
even the first outfits with the beautiful branch
Yes.
print
Yeah.
on. I mean,
Yes.
it was
Yeah.
just, you know, you knew when the
So-
first outfit came out, there was sort of something special. And, you know, to end with the trash bags, I think it was just so brilliant.
And but my favourite thing was the simplest. You know, the long black strapless top with white dress that just puffed out from underneath it. It was really, and also the story that he attached to it. I'm big on stories in collections. The story about this tribe of women in Romania or something, or Transylvania or
Carpathian
something.
Mountains or something, yeah.
Terrifying.
Asgardas.
I drink your blood, you know, and they really tribal, no men. How do they breed?
How
I
breathe
don't-
or breathe?
They must bring menfolk from the village, and then they destroy them after they've mated with them.
I think they're
Black
all
Widow
older.
spiders.
I'm not
Oh, are they?
sure. I think
Yes.
I've read, if it's the same, they're sort of older women.
I
who
feel a
sort of
movie coming on
are-
anyway. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people do.
That's
It's
where
your,
Mom's
it's your
going.
strong woman again.
Well, it is. Slightly, definitely damaged and
You think?
well, I mean, I know that Mum was obsessed with the very melancholic music. She was obsessed with the way that they did the lighting, which was, she described through, that it came through sort of not broken slats or something like that, that was all
Like a haunted mansion.
exactly, and in that way, there's quite a frightening sadness, albeit strong. But I think that strength in that way comes from torture.
Well, the music had a sort of gypsy, gothic gypsy, and the eye makeup and the hair and
Yeah.
Can I ask a question which I don't know the answer to, but any of you might? How connected are Gareth Pugh and Rick Owens? Because
Very.
it's so
Very, yeah.
Rick Owens to me. I think there's so much that's Rick about that.
Well, let's look at Rick then, because I think it was one of Rick's best collections, and it's radically different from this.
Well, what is their connection?
That will mentor.
Yeah.
Michelle
fine.
is Gareth's
Okay,
mentor.
yeah, Rick's wife.
Yeah, is
Yeah,
Gareth's
okay.
mentor.
Okay.
And I thought it's funny that Gareth, because for a while I don't think he's felt completely comfortable with what he's been doing, and with this collection it just felt like he was was so revived and
I felt like last season was a
energized.
taster of what was going to, and then this season it was just like he just fully gone for it. You know, because I thought last season was amazing as well. You know, everyone said it was more feminine, which I think was a bit oversimplistic, but it felt like he was kind of letting go in a sense, and I don't know, I thought it was incredible this season.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was fabulous.
But the way that plastic was like taffeta when it went rustling past.
You want to hear those clothes.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all I could
another
think
of
when
the
I saw
moments.
it.
This is the V&A, the rustle of the bustle. Isn't there a
Oh,
book? Isn't
yeah.
was there an exhibition or a book or
you
something
do-
called the rustle of the bustle?
There is a lot of people who've written about that
Yeah.
idea, yeah, and the tin-weighted silks they used to use
Yeah.
under dresses to get that sort of
Like
sound.
Gautier did that collection where you could hear everything coming from half a mile
Oh
away.
my God, you should have motorized mannequins swishing their
Exactly,
legs.
really.
It's like, you know, a little installation of one of the
Yeah.
next
Amazing,
ones.
yeah.
No.
Yay!
We did a
Yeah.
project on SHOWstudio. Penny Martin did it when she was here, I think, which was like the sound. I think it was Penny when she was here. It was the sound of clothes, and they like recorded it. It was incredible. It was amazing.
And Gilles did one of his debut in Paris when he had the clothes were strung with strands of Murano glass beads, and they were shattering while the models were walking.
Wow.
So you could just hear this tinkle, tinkle, smash, tinkle, tinkle, smash. That was beautiful. Anyway, back to Rick Owens.
Yeah, the sound of fashion.
No, I want to hear that bin bag dress. Me.
Me too.
That's
I wonder if
an
it sounds
official
like,
request
did it
for an
sound like
exhibition at
leaves
the
in the
V&A.
tree?
Well, it would be like if you were asleep or you just woke up in an empty house and you'd hear the whispering of the woman in black coming towards you.
That's amazing.
It would
I
settle on your
wish I
chest
was
like
at
a
that
huge
Gareth.
succubus and
That
drain you dry. It's my
succubus
theme for
and
this
an
talk,
incubus.
obviously. A succubus or an incubus?
I don't know which one, which is worse.
I guess one sucks and one inks. One must be a tattooist at heart.
But Rick is really
Yeah.
different to what we saw at Rick Owens as well, because you said
Yeah.
you thought this was a really strong collection.
Yeah, I thought this collection was, it's funny because, I don't know, I guess it's fun to talk to people about what they do because I still walk away thinking, well, I thought it was this, you know, what the hell. And he had a much more kind of violent, a much harsher interpretation of what he was doing, and I just thought it was so beautiful. I love this this basket weaving, Japanese basket weaving
Yeah.
technique where
No, I
the
thought
clothes were
knots.
tied together and not knots, and it was beautiful. And the kimono sleeves and the volumes were very accessible. It just you know, I know he's hugely, well, I've been told this, but maybe you know, hugely successful. That just he has such an ardent following and
I'm wearing Rick today.
sells
I was
out.
gonna
in
say,
many
you-
places in stores.
I collect his jackets. I just love them. I just love everything he does, really.
So was this a strong season for Paris then? Have we missed anyone? Or we're always going to have missed thousands of people.
Yes, we
But
have.
Who have we missed, him?
God knows. Probably lots. I would also like to say that for me, as there were these strong kind of signal seasons across the top, but I thought people like Neil Barrett, for example,
Neil
did
Barrett
a
was
really
amazing.
super strong
Yeah.
collection. We talked about Christophe Lemaire, his own collection. I thought was really strong. The way he staged it was really great too. The women, the sort of noise of these women going on a rendezvous, you know, assignation with high heels clipping around a railway station. It was
More
just-
fashion
it was kind
noise.
what was that? I thought that sounded like a dog fart.
No, she breathed into my microphone, but
Oh.
we're talking again about the noise of the fashion
yes.
show.
Yes.
You think that really needs to be, I think we need to do a V&A thing.
Well, yeah. Also, we had Jeremy on one of the panels. Jeremy Healy
Jeremy
was talking about
Healy.
the you know that the music aspect too, which is fantastic.
It's
Yeah,
so
that's so
interesting when you hear him
true.
go,
But
yeah.
it influences how I
Completely,
think how you
completely.
how
Oh my
you
God.
receive
I
the collection.
grilled
I'm
him.
sure you.
What about in the David Bowie one, which I can't wait to go to? Are you going to have music playing as you walk through it?
There, I can't reveal anything, but there will be a sound element.
Yeah.
Great.
You I want to have that exhibition. I want that Gareth Pugh dress with some legs going. That's all I can think about now. It's going to dominate.
No,
my
what
thoughts
did we
a
miss
bit.
apart from?
Yeah, I'm
Neil
worried.
Barrett.
No, I'm just thinking about all the other things that I saw that
Let's go back to
Celine,
Celine we talked about.
Yeah.
Balmain, super polarizing collection.
Super polarizing.
Yeah, like Carly Kloss said, she's so tall that she bangs her head on, you know, the top of door frames when she's going through doors, and now she's going to be stuck on either side because the clothes were just so
That's
insanely wide. I thought they were the workmanship in them was the fetishism of this collection was just absolutely extraordinary, and Olivier Roustin's unholy enthusiasm for the 80s.
Yeah.
It's just so winning. You know, it's like you want to say, okay, you were born in like 90 or something. And I suppose the 80s were fun. Yeah, they were good. But there was a sort of Ungaro when you look at it here, that sort of draping and so on.
But again, I think there's that nice thread back to the original Balmain, which was all about sort of amazing evening wear, that sort of very the look, that it was very much statement clothing and very opulent, and in a way, I don't know, there's some kind of parallel I think with this collection certainly.
But then the exaggeration of it. This is the thing right back to the beginning when we're talking about what somebody who doesn't have a clue what Balmain stood for would get from these clothes. If you were just looking at them with no reference, what would you see? Fashion, a lot of fashion people looked at them and were just like, oof. But if you were just looking at it without any kind of context, what do you see? I kind of loved this. I thought it was so. If you can find Carly's picture with that.
That's there.
No, is that
That's
it?
it's there, wide shoulders in the
I
centre.
think there's another one. I think she's wearing another one at one point. Is that near the
Let's
end?
keep going.
She's wearing another outfit which is even bigger.
Can we go down, Neil? Let's find Carly.
Yes, I think she has one more, and it's just
that's not
so unbelievably huge. But beautifully made. I mean, so incredibly
We're
detailed.
looking for Carly.
Yeah, one more. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, no,
maybe at the top.
Maybe that was it. It doesn't look so big.
That's
pretty humongous.
That's
Does it
giant.
look big?
Yeah.
Does it look
That's
like
like
that?
That is so big.
She's as
Okay,
wide as
fine.
she is tall. Look at
She
it.
could have two heads on either shoulder.
Yeah, well, that's that.
She could have 5 heads.
But
But no,
that,
that is interesting the way people look at stuff if you don't know the brand.
this is like people like his girls, for example, the girls that hang around with him. I suppose Emmanuel Alt might be one of them. I don't know, but would they look at those? Well, no, she wouldn't. She wouldn't wear gold, I don't think, for a start. But would they look at the clothes and just love them? Where other people would say, "Oh, they're so vulgar," or what? It's like Tom Ford's show in London, which people looking at the photos were like, but when you were there, it just was so you just got caught up in it.
I appreciate the opulence of them and the kind of Baroque richness of what's going on, and I appreciate the silhouette and the extreme shape and the big 80s pants and everything. And I can see it on an editorial level as being fabulous to work with in that way. As a retailer, not so easy. And as a woman, I wouldn't go near it. It's not right for me because I'm little and I just look like a small dwarf engulfed in gold.
So is this the kind of collection you look at it and you think brick?
Brick.
Brazil, Russia, India, China.
Oh. That isn't where my mind normally goes, but I can certainly see that way of thinking, yes. And
I see.
Yeah.
I think it was brick. I said brick in the singular, not bricks.
No, I got that. It's fine. I totally get what you're saying, and I see that. Oh yes, you could think that. I mean, I could see some fabulous woman wearing this in a party in New York and like looking great and
You'd
making
be
a
really
massive,
jealous of her as well.
Yeah,
because
and
you'd be
making
like, I
a
don't
great
have the
statement.
confidence
For
to do
me
that.
personally, it's not for me, but I can see how it works on different levels. But it is vulgar on another.
I would
in
look
all
like
honesty.
a transvestite if I wore that because if you're tall and then you
I know,
wear
but
something,
you've got
Honey,
the
I'd be in
height
the
for it, too.
circus.
I would look like a transvestite.
You could carry off those harem pants.
Thank
See,
you.
I wouldn't have done any of
What a
the bottoms. I liked some of the tops. I thought that they were amazing.
Yeah.
Get
But the
Lame
workmanship on them is
away.
just-
You were amazing. Get Lame away from me.
Okay, let's see if there's something else that we missed.
Yeah, let's go back to our general collections here. I'm really worried that we're going to miss stuff because when we finished our London one, there's so much stuff we could.
Vuitton
Really?
made me emotional. And
Oh
I
yeah, actually,
think
can we talk about
that
that?
Miu Miu.
it was
And Miu Miu as well, witchy. I love
the,
that.
Yeah.
Let's go
the
to
music,
the
the
end.
woman, the characterization of the woman.
Perfect.
It the way they all came out of the doors and you could see the man dressing,
Yeah.
and it was like a.
And Ruth's amazing films.
Yeah.
It was like it was sad. It was a sad woman who seemed strong, but like this sort of rich courtesan. And I don't know, I got caught up in this idea that's very like my mum thinking of these sad women, but it got to me. A lot to do with the music, a lot to
It
do
did
with
feel
the makeup.
sad.
I think it was perfect that it was more or less the last show of the season because we've talked about how it was a season where, we've talked in the past, fashion has been theatrical, and this season it felt more cinematographic, and it was perfect to end on a collection that felt like Elizabeth Taylor and Butterfield 8. There was so many movie references.
I love movie references so much.
And the empty hotel corridor.
Pixie!
Oh.
Pixie!
Attack.
She loves it.
Pixie, hey, come here.
But it was like, this is the grown-up woman from the Marc Jacobs show. So that you
Completely.
that was the child, and she grew into this woman.
And you think she's disappointed with life, or is she?
I think she's really hurting. There was,
no.
I felt there was pain.
Yeah, she seemed
there was like a
frustrated and
glamorous
sad and-
element, sexy with her
Wow.
beautiful slit and amazing coat, but she's alone, and there was a sadness.
There's
and
always
Can I
something
just tell
sad
you?
about a woman in a slip and a coat.
When you look at the chest on that girl right there, you can imagine just with one touch, blood just coming straight. It's so close to the skin. There's a depression about
Like
it for
those
sure.
Carpathian
It's a
babes.
depression. What?
Those Carpathian babes.
We're back to
I
death.
drink
This
your
can't
blood.
happen again.
Right? But this is what I'm feeling from the season, is a lot of that.
Would you think that after we've been talking about these really super strong women who could crush men like bugs, do you think this is what happens? They've driven men away, and now they've resigned themselves to a
They're
a
lonely
future?
alcoholic housewives.
No.
And then they become witches at
Woman's
Belgium
world.
and take revenge.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah, they
fun.
get their power back
Belgium,
by
the lonely
harnessing the
alcoholic?
strength there. Yeah.
I think
She
it's
wasn't
really
lonely,
telling
though.
what you say, because
Yeah,
it did
lots of
tie
busy.
together that cinematic thing.
She was
Yeah.
I
busy.
think you're right.
Yeah, it did feel like the show of the season in the sense that it was so about film and cinema.
What Vuitton?
Vuitton, yeah,
But
completely.
It kind of
Tipped it on its head.
it kind of docked with Prada pretty well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But Vuitton always docks with Prada in this weird way where you feel like you haven't quite seen the season until you've balanced Prada and Vuitton.
Oh, and then Miu Miu.
What did you think of this?
I wasn't at the show, unfortunately. So I'm loath to pass comment, even though looking at the pictures, I just think it looks wonderful.
It looks like licorice all sorts. I love it. It made me really hungry when I looked at it. It reminded me of being a child and eating.
But if Prada was quite melancholic, this felt very upbeat to me.
For sure, yeah.
It felt like...
But she always does that. She kind of kicks what she's done, doesn't she? And kind of.
And in a funny way, just looking at it there's a slight echo of, which was also in the Givenchy, I thought. Gaultier did a collection decades ago based on the clothes of the concierge. And it was one of his really it was a wonderful collection. And then just that proportion, and also in Givenchy, I felt that too. That, Gaultier is, we mentioned yesterday, is somebody who was so infallibly wonderful for season after season after season, and I suppose it's inevitable that one day the pendulum will swing back round. I hope it's inevitable. You think?
Yeah, well, I mean, for a long time he was holding French fashion. I mean, there were some years where, he was the person that everybody wanted to see. And
The V&A wouldn't do that exhibition that's travelling around?
that is a fabulous exhibition, and I think it, who knows. So.
That's so diplomatic.
I think it might come to Britain anyway.
He deserves it.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
So what's the takeaway from the season? You said something wonderful before, Tim, when you were talking about the individual in fashion. I thought it was lovely for this season. What's going to be our takeaway from Paris? And
Women
from
and their
season?
lives. I mean, make Mutu's thing the motto of the season.
Yeah.
Can't really top that. That's everything.
No,
isn't
that's
it. Thank you, Tim.
Thank her.
You guys.
I
Thank
did
you,
nothing.
Thank you.
I was just the messenger.
You guys have been fabulous. Thank you so much, and thank you,
Thank you.
too. I feel really sad. That's the end of the season.
Oh, we can do Tokyo next. We can do Sydney.
God, don't say this. Nick's going to get all sorts of ideas. Well, thank you very much. You've been fab. I feel like we should have a clap because it is the end of the season. So let's clap for you and clap everyone.